pray. And if their God's God, he'll show up. So without all the dramatics and fireworks, the short story is about 6 months into that program, I was on a run in a small town outside of Columbus, Ohio. And just like I had dared him to, God showed up in a material, dramatic way. And thank you, Paul. And I became a Christian September 24th, 2002. And obviously that's kind of BC and AC for me. So September 24th, 2002, I became a Christian after daring God to show up in my life. Thank you very much. So it's been a little over 6 years since I became a Christian, and I have diligently prayed and read all those books. I'm still reading all those books, and studied and attended a small group, which has been so fantastic for me. I have an accountability partner, and it's just been a tremendous walk. And I've grown, and I continue to grow in my understanding of God. And I don't think that's what maybe Mark intended for me to say, but I'm relatively speaking a neophyte. And I just want to be clear about that before I go into the preachy part of my talk today. And I know that I'm supposed to share some nugget of wisdom, and I'll try to do that. But I just wanted to be clear, still probably a relative neophyte compared to maybe some of you. But I think there is an important point about God and work that I'd like to share with you today that's become so clear to me, having become the CEO of Knowledgeant a little over 6 months ago, and certainly seeing work and life from a different perspective than I've ever seen it before. I was the chairman of the company. I've always been active in Knowledgeant, but I never had that responsibility and the role as the CEO that I have now. And so my walk has sort of been on fast forward for the last 6 or 8 months as a result of that change in my job. So humbly, I want to share with you what I call the idiot's guide to God at work. And then, like any good engineer, mathematician would, I'll try to prove my theory with numbers, right? So here's the idiot's guide to God at work. And kind of my summary, in summary points. I need things simply, so this is my summary points. If God is God, he created the universe. If you believe God is God, you believe he created the universe. And if God created the universe, he didn't just wasn't just throwing paint on canvas and seeing how it all went. He created the universe according to a set of principles that it would operate according to. And he was good enough to have written down an instruction book for us to live life according to those principles in his universe that he created. That book, as we all know, that are believers, is called the Bible. So as with any set of instructions, if you follow the instructions, things go well. If you don't follow the instructions, things tend to break. And my summary of the Bible that I give to my 3-year-old and my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old is that the summary of this instruction book is that if you love and serve others, you will have joy. If you love and serve yourself, you won't. And so that's my short summary of the Idiot's Guide to Theology. So my Idiot's Guide to God at Work. So what does that mean for work? God created the universe. He caused it to operate according to a set of principles. That set of principles is love and serve others. So what does that mean for work? Well, obviously it means everything about everything that we do with our lives. But let me use some numbers to illustrate why I think our impact at work, no matter what our jobs are, no matter what our future jobs will be if we're seeking employment, about what our impact is at work. 13% of your life, and I took the average lifespan of a man and woman and I averaged them together. Fortunately, men, women average us up a little bit. 13% of your life is spent as a child. And for any of you that have kids, you probably would agree with me, those are pretty selfish years. They don't mean to be, they don't know any different, but kids are generally self-oriented. So 13% of your life is spent as a child. 17% of your life is spent eating, watching TV, and reading the news. 17%. Now, those don't feel like self-indulgent activities, but they're definitely self-serving. I mean, you're not serving anyone else by eating and watching TV and reading the news. 17% of your life. 33% of your life is spent sleeping. Necessary, but self-serving. Add those together. That's 63% of your life. Nearly 2/3 of your life is completely self-serving. So the other 37%, roughly 1/3 of your life, is what I call your opportunity life. That's the life, the part of your life that you have an opportunity to serve yourself or others. And 20% of that opportunity life is spent in retirement. And for many people, that's even more selfish than when they're children. It's among the more self-serving years of your life. 46%, nearly half of your opportunity life is spent working. So let me go back through this again. God created the universe. If you're a believer, you believe God created the universe. He caused it to operate according to a set of principles, which is love and serve others. And He gave us an instruction book, and oh, by the way, sent His Son here to reinforce that, all the terrible things that happened that followed that. And our work is our single greatest opportunity to do what God has instructed us to do. And you can either choose to obey that or not. He gives you that choice. But God is not unclear on this subject. It is not ambiguous on this subject. So we, in our work, are called to serve. I mean, it's just that clear to me. So that's my idiot's guide to God at work. And sort of my summary of it is that our work is the greatest opportunity to serve. So if I'm you right now, I'm going, okay, Mr. Big Talk, Mr. Preachy Guy, how's that working for you? Let's hear what you're doing, okay? Because it sounds great in principle, but how's that working for you? And how's it working for your business, more importantly? So clearly, I wasn't doing this before. I think Sammy made it clear that I was serving myself. There's no doubt about that. And I would even argue that after I became a Christian, before I became the CEO of Knowledgeant, not sure I was living this out fully. I was still sort of learning what this meant. And I really do hope that I'm more focused today on using God's gifts for others as opposed to trying to have it all for myself. And let me give you a couple of examples of how we've been able at Knowledgeant to use the resources and the opportunities that God has given us to try to serve our community. So let me just give you a couple of those examples. As Mark said, I'm the CEO of the great company here in Atlanta called Knowledgeant. It's been a real privilege to get to work with people like Rusty Gordon, who retired last year, and it's been a great opportunity to grow and have him as a mentor and to sort of continue the legacy that he started at Knowledgeant. And let me just use this example. So we do these things called days of service. Every quarter we shut down the office for a day and we go serve somewhere as a company. It's a great team building event, but it creates a culture of service to the community. So this year we chose to support an organization called MUST, which is a homeless shelter and ministry, Methodist ministries. Anybody familiar with that? I see a few heads nodding. Yeah, so MUST. If you've been over there, it's a wonderful organization. I just have a huge heart for MUST. And so we went over to serve MUST. And we were going over to serve lunch and to provide bag lunches for folks. Now, MUST has both residents who are formerly homeless, have 6 weeks to reside there and kind of get back on their feet, and folks who are homeless who aren't residents but can come there to get meals. And so we were going over to serve lunch and provide bag lunches, which actually for many of those folks became dinners. And it was a wonderful experience in many ways. It was really neat to see most of the people that serve lunch at Must are church organizations. And what did church organizations bring? I mean, it's like casserole city, right? So these homeless folks have been casseroled to death. So we made hamburgers. It was like Christmas for these folks. I mean, I've never in my life seen anybody eat 5 hamburgers. But it was a wonderful experience. But what was so profound as we served these folks was the people that came through the line that could have been sitting in this room. And they weren't, certainly there were a lot of folks that you're accustomed to seeing in a homeless situation. But there were a lot of folks that weren't. And there were mothers with young children and beat up old strollers that had pushed the strollers for miles to get there. There were women in their 80s, there were men that looked like anybody that might be in this room. And what occurred to me was that the recession has a magnifying effect as it goes down the socioeconomic scale. And